afternoon, everybody. My name is Nick Turner. I'm the chair of the Chartered Clubs Committee. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And if you're able, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All the committee members are present, so we have a quorum. It's also nice to see a lot of familiar faces in the audience again here today. I'll begin the meeting by reading the meeting procedures. The Governing Board and its committees conduct all of their meetings in compliance with Arizona Planned Community Association open meeting laws per ARS 33-1804 and in concert with Recreation Centre the Sun City West bylaws, policies and standing rules. Parliamentary procedures, as outlined in the most recent edition of Robert's Rules of Order, will also be followed in all meetings as appropriate, consistent with Bylaw 3.07, Procedures for Owner-Member Meetings, and Standing Rules number 2 and number 3. Okay, the next item on the agenda is number 201, the approval of the minutes from the May meeting. Do we have any objections to the content of those from the members who were here last May? No, we don't, so those minutes are approved. And we move on into admin and housekeeping. Most of the content of the agenda for the meeting today is a traditional kick-off meeting. And the first one we need, of course, is microphone usage. Now, I think all of the existing committee members are familiar with how this works, but push it back on again and you can hear me. I don't know if Kathy and John, I'd like to say welcome to them, our new members. If you could just give us a quick microphone test.
Kathy Fitzgerald, thank you.
John Harrison, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And as also is common for the first meeting, we'll have all the members of the committee introduce themselves. Then later on in the year, if anybody wants to know who the committee members are, they can go back to the recording of this meeting and then have a look so that we don't have to do the introductions every time. We'll start down at the end with Nancy for just a quick who you are, how long you've been here, and in 2 sentences about your background.
Nothing about the cold storm I was born in Wyoming. None of that. Not that far back, Nick.
No, not that far back.
Okay. Nancy Hunt. I've spent, I think, 3 rounds at the Properties Committee, and this is my second at the Charter, and Nick was gracious enough to allow me back a second time.
My name's Dave Bennett. This is the second year for me on the Charter Club Committee. I've been in Sun City West a little over 4 years, and I'm active in softball, and I'm signed up for Zymergy as well.
Kathy Fitzgerald, I've been here for 5 years, and my background comes primarily airlines and travel companies and a little bit of event planning and facilities management.
Denise Rondo, second year on this committee. I've been here approximately 12 years and look forward to help anybody that needs some help.
I think everybody knows me, but this is my first year on the governing board, probably the 4th year on this committee now, and I'm a retired software product manager.
Sandra Forsey. I'm also a member of the governing board. I've been in Sun City West for 6 years, been president of a couple different clubs, vice president. That's it.
I'm Pat Kramer. I've been here for 7 years. This is my 2nd year on this committee. I'm active as much as I can. I played tennis and pickleball. Now I have a bad back, so I can't do either, so I'm just here.
I'm John Harrison. My wife and I moved here just 2 years ago to retire from Michigan. I'm a retired healthcare IT manager. I'm also a needle pointer and currently the president of the Creative Stitchers Club.
My name is Cheryl Tyler. We've been here for over 20 years. We've been here for about 14 permanently. This is my second year on the committee, and welcome to everyone.
I'm Casey Huda. I'm the rec center manager. I've been rec center manager for 4 years, but been here for 10, and looking forward to the new season.
Okay, thank you, everybody. All of the committee members, you've received a roster which has got the names and contact details for all of the standing committees. This is private information, which is why it's not attached to the agenda in any way. And it's there in case you need to contact each other or other members of the committee at any time, but please keep it confidential. Right, new for this year, we have a replacement for board docs. It's called we're going to be calling it our governance hub. I think all of you here on the committee, you've probably seen it and had a look at it, but in order to give us a little bit more orientation for both us and the audience members, Karen, the Governing Board Executive Assistant, is just going to give us a quick guided tour.
Thank you, Nick. Again, my name is Karen Rupkin. I work for the board, and on behalf of the board, we're excited to introduce the new governance hub. Again, as Nick mentioned, I believe, this is the replacement for board docs. For those of you who went to board docs in the past, you'll see it looks a little bit different, in fact, a lot different. It's much easier to use, easier to navigate, and so I'm just going to touch on some of the high points. Last time I started with the actual meetings, when I went through this morning with the BNF committee. So what I'm going to do today is I'm just going to show you probably the easiest way to get to this governance hub, or as I call it, the hub. I've already reduced all the words. So you go to the Sun City West website. Bear in mind, the Sun City West website is a totally different site to the governance hub. They are not the same. So if you go to the Sun City West website, and you scroll, oops, see, I need to scroll, which I never do with this mouse anyway, down the page, the home page of the Sun City West website, click on the governing board link, and up come all the governing board directors for this year. If you scroll down, you'll see here's the governance hub. You just click on the link and up it comes. So that's how you get to it. And again, this is great because unlike board docs, you see a calendar right here, and there are many ways to do things, but the easiest way to find meetings, and they are all listed for the year. So I just want to show you, you go through the entire year, they're already up here. So for example, on December 4th, the 4th of December, there's a properties committee meeting. You'll notice it's all gray and it's not underlined. Why is that? Because I haven't put the agenda for that December meeting up yet. This all goes live. This whole system is based on when I put agendas up. So here we are today. I'm going to go back to, can do this several different ways. I'm old-fashioned, so I tend to be very systematic in the way I do things. So September 2 is today. Here's the meeting we're in. I'm not going to click it because these meetings are delayed slightly because of YouTube. So I'm not going to go into this meeting. We're all here. We know the agenda. We know the meeting's happening. So I'm going to hit the back button, go back into this schedule just to show you a meeting for, let's say, Thursday, which is the properties meeting. Notice it's underlined in orange, just like today's meeting. That means the link is live. I'm just going to click it to show you what happens. Just like today's agenda that's up on the screen, you'll find the properties meeting for Thursday. There it is, looking much different from board docs days. I hope you all realize it's a much bigger font for one. And yes, you're not kidding. It's been great. The other thing is if you want to print the agenda, I failed to mention this morning, you simply hit either agenda and it'll print what is typically a 2-page agenda, or if you print what's called the agenda packet, not only will you have the 2-page agenda, but you'll have a copy automatically of all the attachments strung out after it. So yes. There will be a link. Do you see how it says video and agenda? You're just going to come to this page like you're sitting in this meeting, just like the folks at home right now. They're watching all this. And in fact, yeah, so see how I'm pointing to something called split screen? When I'm going to click it for props. So what will happen is if you click the video button, not only will you have agenda, you're going to be watching the video. Okay, and that's what the folks at home are doing right now, but because there's a delay, I don't want to go there and get everybody confused. So I'm going to go back again. I tend to be pretty systematic in the way I do things. This is the home page. By the way, you're going to know it's home. It says home up there, just because you can click through and go to other options. I'm just quickly going to cover, and remember these, every online page is like reading a newspaper page. One of my most common questions when residents come to me is, well, I'm sitting there, but I don't see anything you're talking about. You have to scroll down like you're reading a big newspaper page, and you're going to get to content. So these tiles midway down the home page include where all our bylaws and policies are. And again, because it's underlined, it's clickable. It'll take you through to our bylaws and policies, other information about the board, and committee schedules and so forth under what's called Document and Information Center. Bylaws and policy revisions when the board or its committee starts suggesting red line reviews and the board approves those, they will be listed here for community review. There's also a link directly to our website just to make it easier to go back again to that other site, because the hub is a separate website. But this is what I want to show everybody. Subscribe to meeting notices. Notice if you click it, and again, you have to scroll down to content. All of the board and committee meetings are listed here, all of them. Not by date, but by type. Every box that you check, you'll put your email down at the bottom. You'll submit that, and you will get notices about those meetings in your inboxes. So that's a really nice sort of feature to have. Remember, when does that occur? It occurs when I make the agendas live. Okay, so that may be 2 weeks before a meeting. It may be 48 hours before, hopefully not, but by meeting law, I have to have all of our agendas up 48 hours in advance. So that kind of introduces you. And again, I'm just going to zip back. What do I do? Because I go to home this way. Whatever, it's just how I do things. You don't have to necessarily do that. In fact, the back button in Board Docs, see, there's a habit. The back button in the hub works, the back arrow, I should say. Regardless, if you have any questions, there I am again. This is my contact information at the bottom. Feel free to reach out to me and I'll walk you through so that you understand how to use this hub in all ways, even more deeply than what I've shown today. So I hope that helps introduce you to the new hub, and I hope you enjoy it, like I certainly am. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Any questions for Karen?
Any questions but Nancy? I'm an Apple lady, so can I print these off on my Apple?
Yes, in theory, that should work. Nancy, if you have any problems, because Apple's a little bit of it, can be a little bit of a wrinkle, it just depends. Just let me know. But it should work on Apple, yes. Thank you.
Any more questions from the committee? Any questions from the audience? No, okay. Sorry, on to item 305, Arizona open meetings and bylaws, laws and bylaws. There are links here for everybody, in fact, but for the committee members in particular to look at the bylaws, which I hope you've done already, but if not, please do. Look at the bylaws, and there's also a link there to some more information from Arizona about their open meeting laws. I'll just cover some pertinent points of that a little bit later on when we get into section 5 on our responsibilities and duties. I've got a couple of things in the slides about that. So moving, and we can take any questions then as well. So moving on to number 4, reports. One of our regular activities that we have every meeting is a report from our Recreation Manager, Casey Hooter. And Casey, you have some things for us, I believe.
Yes, not too much. Just some save the dates. Keep forgetting that there's a TV here now. We have our newcomers coming up October 22nd. So Christy has gotten a very overwhelming response from the charter clubs. So thank you very much. We're at almost to 60 of our 91 clubs. And then treasurers meeting is something that we have done for many, many years. So just kind of keep that for you treasurers out there. Presidents, if you want to attend, you're more than welcome to as well. And then our officers meetings that we hold annually, I will have the times probably in November and send those out to all of the clubs. I separate them by categories. And then we have a second newcomers for the season for February 11th. So looking forward to that. Next slide. I put a quote on there. And then some friendly updates. If you have questions about your upcoming season, if we have any transitions in officers, please schedule an appointment with our scheduling department. That's Laura and Donna, because if you are a no-call, no-show, we will start charging clubs. We have had about 3 this year. It's not a lot, but I just kind of want to put it out there that when the FAs and the leads are setting up for 150 people and nobody shows because they didn't cancel, we need to definitely hold the clubs accountable for that. So just kind of wanted to hit that up. Nominating committees, it's that time that many of you start with your nominating committees. I've had a couple of clubs reach out and ask for some assistance, so we are willing to do that. So if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. You can come directly to me or Christy for those. And then for voting, we do offer the online. So Christy is actually the one that conducts those for the clubs. And we just closed a vote today for Spanish Club. So it works very well. Is that it? Oh, I thought there was a third slide. I have a question though. Can I give a liaison update for theater?
Yes.
Do you want
Go
to
ahead.
Okay. We this summer, theater was able to reinstate their IRS tax status, so they are back on the dock. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there so everybody knows when we were ending the season, that was not the case. So the temporary board that was put in place did an outstanding job. They used some of the resources within the club to get with the IRS and definitely put that to bed. So it was Nick Misos, president, John Hobolt, treasurer, Judy Ross, vice president, and Tammy Wells. So kudos to them as a secretary, kudos to them for taking on that challenge.
Thank you, Casey, and again, thank you to those 4 individuals for getting Theatre West back on track. That's, yeah, I think that's a good thing. Club liaison reports, with no activity over the summer. I don't imagine that we have any reports at the moment. We'll go through the assignments and for next year and then for the next coming year, and then next month we'll have we'll kick off the club liaison reports. That's the end of the regular business. Moving on to new business, this is mainly just about kicking off things. If you could bring up the presentation, please, Laura. Quick apology, there's a couple of slides in this presentation where when it went from PowerPoint to PDF, it altered the fonts and text sizes, and there's a couple of things which are got obscured, but I'll go through that when we get there. First of all, just what to expect as for the new members of the committee and new club officers and so on in the audience. What to expect here from the Chartered Clubs Committee. We referenced earlier on the bylaws which govern the committees. The Chartered Clubs, duties of the Chartered Clubs Committee is to make recommendations. We don't decide anything here. we make recommendations to the governing board, and the governing board is the group that makes the decisions. So we're only making recommendations to do something or not to do something. That's what our voting will be, what the consensus that we come to. We can also take action and investigate things as requested by the governing board, as well as our written duties, and also anything that the general manager may ask us also to take a look at. We can do that. We are acting as a liaison between the chartered clubs and the governing board. So if you're a club officer and you have an issue, this is where you start. You don't go direct to the governing board, but we can raise things with the governing board as we need to. As I said, the general manager can also ask us to look into things and seek our opinions on matters. And one of our other duties is to, as the wording says in the bylaws and policies, continually assess the club's adherence to the rules, regulations and procedures, and annually make recommendations to the general manager and the governing board for amending the rules, regulations and procedures. Those of you who are familiar with the work of committees like Budget, Finance, Properties and so on, they review their policies every year. We don't have policies, we have the RRMPs to review, and more about that later. But we are required by policy to review those RRMPs annually. We should work with the Properties Committee to review all requests for capital improvements and changes that come in from the clubs, and we'll be doing that as those arise. And we have one of those already, but a little bit more on that again later. And as a result of your votes and your consensus on those capital improvements, I will then make a recommendation to the general manager and the president on that when it comes to the review of those by the governing board. So, moving on, what do we expect from you as a Charter Clubs Committee member? I've got... Sorry, I moved ahead 2 slides, not one. What are our key goals for the year? One of the other things we have to do is set some goals for the year. Not many for us in this committee. We do have a lot of, if you like, review of ongoing things and things which may arise during the course of the year. But our goals are that review of the RRMPs, the review of the capital requests from the clubs and the general manager, participation in Properties Committee inspection tours. That is something which kind of began new last year. Previously, the Properties Committee went round and did their annual inspection tours. And then we as a committee may have had to review some capital request item, and nobody had been there or seen it or understood precisely what the issues were. And so last year, the Properties Committee invited members of chartered clubs and Budget and Finance to go on their tours with them. And I've spoken with John Chattin, Chair of Properties, and he's extended that same invitation again this year. And you have in front of you the dates and schedule for those tours, which I stole from his meeting agenda, as the meeting is on Thursday. And it's 48 hours ahead of that meeting, so it's been published. So the dates and times are there. I would encourage you to attend, even if there is no capital request for a particular recreation centre. It's a good thing to go on those tours. You get to see behind the scenes. If you want to see what the pipe work looks like for a swimming pool, heating, filtering and pump room, you can understand the complexity and why sometimes it's expensive to change things, because there is a lot of complexity and a lot of equipment, that has to be maintained and repaired. And one of our other duties as well is to review accommodation requests. Accommodation requests are when a club can't do something because the RRMPs say they can't do it, but they feel as a club that they ought to be able to do it, and in order to fulfill their mission as a club, they need some kind of an accommodation to break up one of the rules. So if any of those requests come in again, we will review those again and then make a recommendation to the governing board about whether that club should be allowed to do that. Moving on to the next slide. As a member of the Charter Clubs Committee, we expect, I expect and we expect that you will be working with your clubs as a liaison, that you'll be bringing forward ideas and criticism as well here to the committee in a constructive way, and also couple of little pointers here as well is be professional at all times, be judicious in your use of social media is the language which I picked up from a previous version of this slide, is if it's something to do with chartered clubs, don't comment on social media. It's basically, we're here as a member of the committee, you may be taken as representing the committee, even though the item may not be so. So just be judicious in your use of social media. If we are being asked to vote on some kind of a capital request, which happens to be a club that you're a member of or an officer of, consider you recusing yourself from that decision. And of course, when there may be reports, work products, assignments, etc., as required, which happens for all committee members. Next slide, please, Laura. And one of our important jobs is to be liaisons for clubs. It's a helping role for the clubs. It's assistance to the clubs, to the club officers. It also helps you understand how clubs work, what they're doing, what they're trying to achieve. It can be a very interesting role, going out and talking and meeting with those clubs. And occasionally they will have problems or issues that you can help resolve, although the club should be going first of all to Casey and her team if there are any issues, and we should only get involved if things in that area start breaking down or something like that. But work with Casey. I've spoken with Casey and her door is open, so if you do have an issue with a club or a club raises an issue with you, go to Casey and she will help you resolve that. And this is one of the slides where things got obscured when we moved to PDF. I'm going to start with a third bullet there. It should say, after the word of operational, efficiencies and effectiveness. So it's researching ways and means of maintaining the charter club ecosystem to advance the charter club's experience as well as increase operational efficiencies and effectiveness. We're here to help the clubs, and we're not here to tell the clubs they can't do things. We're here to help them understand what they can do and help them do it. We're here to help them thrive. But we have to do that in an efficient and effective way. We're not responsible for solving day-to-day issues. That's down to Casey and the recreation manager and the operational side of the administration. That's not what we're here for. So let's moving on to the next one. That means what are we here not to do? Well, we're not here to run the clubs. That's down to the clubs run the clubs. We don't run the clubs. If you find yourself in a situation where you're suddenly doing the work for the president of the club, it's going wrong. The president of the club should be doing that kind of job. You can still be an officer of a club, but it's not our job to run the clubs for them. And you may have some club members coming up and wanting you to influence people on their behalf because the club wants to do something. It's a rare occurrence. It's happened to me once, I think, in 3.5 years. But just remember that Arizona open meeting laws, and we're here for the benefit of all, not just one or two. So moving on to the final slide, Arizona open meeting laws. All of our work and discussions must be public. So no email decision making. Also, remember, one of the things I have been doing with you is when I have emailed you, it's been BCC, so nobody can accidentally reply all. If you reply all to an email, we're in a meeting, and that has to be open, so we can't do that. Similarly applies to group texts. And if we have side conversations, like end of a meeting, a few of us sitting around, we can't make any decisions. It has to be an open discussion which is available to the public. So if you could all bear that in mind. Any questions on that particular item from the committee? Any questions from the audience? No. Okay, moving on to 502, liaison assignments. I have given you all a sheet with the assignments on. Does anybody have an objection to the assignments that have been given before I make any announcements here? Yeah, okay. As chair and a governing board member, I won't be a liaison for any club, and the same applies to Sandra here. As she's a governing board member, she won't be assigned a club, which means we normally, the committee in the past has only had one governing board member chairing it, which means there were 8 people to act as liaisons. At the moment, that means with this committee we only have 7 to act as liaisons, so I've done a little bit of doubling up. Sports clubs will be David Bennett and Pat Kramer, and because they are both members of sports clubs, they can't be a liaison for the club that they're a member of, so I will leave it to you two to work out which clubs you look after. And also, because we're effectively one liaison short, I've asked you to also look after card clubs. And I know, David, that was your assignment last year, so David is already familiar with most of those card clubs. Social clubs, Denise. Craft clubs, there are a lot, so we have 2 members looking after craft clubs, which is Nancy and Cheryl for craft clubs. John will be taking on hobbies. And finally, Kathy, fitness and dance. Okay. And Casey, I think you have a copy of that. Yep, you do. Casey will email you with contacts for the clubs so that you all know how to do that. So I'd hope that you begin reaching out over the next few weeks to those club presidents to introduce yourself and get to know the clubs and what they're doing. And we can have a progress report on that at the next meeting. Any questions on assignments from committee, audience? No. Okay, we've touched on this before. RRMP's working group. The RRMP's is a big document, and rather than have the committee sit here going through a 60-page red line, it's more effective if we have a working group that looks at the RRMPs, comes up with recommended changes and brings that back here. So, Laura, if we can put up the charter first of all. Our policies say that the working group must have a written charter, so I produced this written charter, which I hope you've all had the opportunity to look at. I don't intend to read it now, but if we can look at the timelines. Policy says that we should have this review completed by January. Last year we didn't quite do that. If the working group decides that they're not going to be able to complete by January, then I can ask the president of the governing board if we can have an extension. But in any case, I expect that this review to be finished by the February meeting so that we can go through our recommendations and get that to the governing board by the end of the year. I've left it open for the working group to undertake its review in any manner it chooses, is the wording I've put there. I'm available for guidance, but I expect you to get input from club presidents, as we did last year, and from staff. And I also expect that any proposed changes we have would be reviewed with Recreation Manager and General Manager before it comes back to the committee. It's good that they have a look at it, because they could say, you might want to make a change, and they could say, are you crazy? Or something similar like that. It's good to get their input, because it is the General Manager and the Recreation Manager who have to enforce these. But if we can have a look at the presentation, please, Laura. This is just a repeat of a slide that you've already seen, talking about how we are annually required to review the RRMPs. I've already been through that slide. If we look at slide number 2, it's bylaw 812 that says that the RRMPs should be established here. And 812.1 says that this is the committee that drafts those rules, regulations, procedures, and that they're reviewed by the General Manager and the Governing Board. If we move on to the next one, Laura, this is something which is important. This is another slide where the font size moved things around. The rules, regulations, and procedures are part of our governing documents, and as you see there, they fall behind policies but ahead of the standing rules. And as a governing document, they're enforceable by the General Manager and his delegates. So it's important that the RRMPs are workable, that they're understandable, and that they are relatively easily enforceable. And the next slide. I've shown you the written charter. The working group can be chaired by a committee member, but a governing board member cannot be part of the working group. They could just be an advisor to it. So I won't be heavily involved at all this year, which is a relief in many ways. Yeah. There is a policy which explains the guidelines for the working group. So those of the committee members here who are a member of that working group have a look at that policy. But most of what you need to know is included in that written charter. And the working group meetings are subject to Arizona open meeting laws. So the time and place of the meeting needs to be published in advance. And of course, members of the public and the community can also come in and observe if they wish, and even comment if the working group is open to that. So, on the next slide here, I hope that we will establish that working group today. I would like the working group to come back to the November meeting with a progress report. January we should have a draft for review, and then we should be able to make our recommendation in February, March at the latest, and then it will go up to the governing board. What I would like to do is just get your consensus as the committee to establish that working group, but before we do that, are there any questions from the committee?
Nick, since you've worked on these for so many years, how do you feel we are in this process? Are you feeling like we've kind of got a good document to start with?
We have a lengthy document.
It was shorter though, wasn't it? Didn't you guys shorten it a bit?
It was shorter, but the problem with the document being shorter was vagueness in many areas. Personally, I think it is too long, but it's very hard to make it shorter without losing clarity. And that's one of the difficulties that you have. So, well, we can strike that, we can strike that, we can strike that, but what do you replace it with? Yeah, so that's the difficult part. The working group can undertake their work, if you like, any way they see fit. They may come back and say no changes. There are some other changes that they may wish to make. So it's entirely down to them. We had a very big review last year because it was the first year of the big long document, and there were typos, there was some clarity, there were even some errors in there, which had to be fixed. So we went through the whole document. I don't expect there to be big changes like we did last year. Any questions from the audience on the review? So, two things. First is I'll just ask the committee for the consensus to establish the working group. And then if the answer to that is yes, I'll ask two of you to lead and then see if any others would also like to be members. So, does anybody object to the formation of the working group? Yep. So we have our consensus to proceed. Okay, we'll establish the working group, and I'll ask Pat and David, because they were on the working group last year, if they would care to lead this year. Getting a yes. Right, so David and Pat will lead the working group. Do we have any other committee members who would like to be a member of that working group? Kathy, Denise, John, that's 5. I think that might be too many. But I will, under the leadership of David and Pat, I will let you work that out. And you also need at least one member who is not a member of this committee. So I'll look out to the audience here and those watching on YouTube. If we have anybody, I would, my recommendation would be that it's an officer of a club, preferably a president. But if you would like to volunteer to take part in the RRMP review, reach out to me. It's nick.turner@suncitywest.com, and I will put you in touch with the leaders of the group. Okay, any more questions? Moving on to 5.04, there's a lot of jargon here. ARC CR13A CIP project introduction, no presentation. What does all that mean? Part of our duties here as a member of the committee is to review capital spending items which are being brought forward by a club. The ARC is the Automotive Restoration Club, and they have a very large capital request for I would say expansion, but it's a completion of their building. This is a big project. It also involves review by Properties Committee and Budget and Finance. The details have been attached for the committee members here to look at. But it has been decided that rather than go through 3 presentations the same to all 3 committees, that there will be a meeting involving the chairs of those 3 committees, General Manager and his staff, and the Automotive Restoration Club to go through some of the detail, understand the issues and problems, ask questions, request further information, and then we will come back to the 3 committees for an approval later. So I need one member of this committee to join me at that meeting, and I spoke with John and Kathy earlier, and the date of the meeting Kathy can't attend, so John will be joining me. Throw John in at the deep end on his first year here on the Charter Clubs Committee. I know, David, you did it last year for one, didn't you? Yeah. Okay, so it's a case of watch this space. We'll come back at the next meeting with some more information. If things go well and go quickly, we may have a presentation next time. If not, we'll have to have a presentation by the November meeting because we have to make a recommendation to the governing board by December 1st, and our December meeting is after that. So we need to be making our decision at the November meeting. Any questions on the ARC building expansion? Any questions from the audience? We have nothing online either at the moment. 505, new safety officer. This is just informational for the clubs as much as anything else. Several months ago, I believe it was might have been after our last committee meeting in May, the Recreation Centre's appointed a new safety officer. It's part of his duties to go around the entire campus, looking into corners, talking with people to make sure everything is compliant with safety laws and good practice. He has already been into several clubs and spoken with the presidents and officers of those clubs and reviewed some of their safety procedures. So his name is Jeffrey Nelson. I'm just as a matter of information for the club presidents and club officers out there is that you may get a visit from Mr. Nelson at some point. And it's just to give you a heads up that he's there. That's what his role is. And that's the kind of work he will be doing, is looking at everything from trip hazards to the amount of electricity that you're using. Okay. Any questions on that item? Okay, so we're through the agenda. As we just to the close, are there any other comments or questions from members of the committee? Any questions or comments from, oh, sorry, Nancy.
I should probably just leave this on, just leave it on you and I can just talk. I'm wondering, last year I was on the charter clubs to liaison with the social clubs. And Pat, my partner, and we ended up coming with a list of Denise, sorry, Pat, sorry. I just wrote Pat's name down. I gotcha. Denise and I ended up with a list of questions and things that we thought would be good for this committee and general services to know. So we asked all of the clubs the same things, apples to apples kind of thing. Do you care about that, Nick? Should we do that? Or maybe me and my other partner this year just kind of go our own way? How would you like it?
Yes, I do. That was good and interesting work. It was. I did like it, and it was good information. It was a 3 or 4 page document of consolidated feedback from club presidents, and I believe that was also done for another group of clubs as well. Those who are new to the committee, we can get a copy of that for you, so you can see the kind of work that was produced. It's entirely down to yourself as liaisons, but it's good to see that as well. Any more committee comments? Kathy?
I just wanted to know something about a procedural process. I noticed that the 1099 threshold requirement for next year goes from $600 to $2,000, and I would assume that would affect some of our clubs. What's the process for distributing this information?
That's a good question. My answer to that would be to encourage the club treasurers to go to the treasurers meeting that Casey mentioned earlier, because at that meeting, our CFO, Cliff, goes through those kinds of issues, when you need a 1099, when you don't need a 1099, all of those kinds of issues as kind of coaching for the treasurers. So that would be my recommendation for the clubs. Any more committee questions? Any questions or comments from the audience? No. I see no questions online either. So with that, just to tell you that the next Charter Clubs meeting is not an October meeting, it's September the 30th. So we are normally the first Tuesday of the month, but we're not next month. So please remember that. We'll be here on September the 30th. And if there's no more comments I see, I will adjourn the meeting at 2:19. Thank you.